Welcome to Big Bets on Campus Live. It's 9:30 a.m. Eastern on New Year's Eve. I'm your host, Stuckey, and with me, as always, is our college football betting connoisseur, Collin Wilson, and of course, our own college football insider, Brett McMurphy. We have a lot to get to. Happy New Year to anyone viewing right now, first of all. And I do want to remind everyone to check out our award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our picks, lots of data, and actionable content for today's college football playoff games and the remaining bowls. We will get to our best bets in just a second. We will also cover 4 marquee games, including both college football semifinals. We will also get to our Twitter poll on one of the bowls this weekend. So without further ado, let's jump right in to our best bets of the weekend. We're going to cover bowls that are today and tomorrow. Now we'll take a quick peek at the leaderboard, and I will get things started. And I'm going to go with Cincinnati plus 14 against Alabama in the college football playoff semifinal. We will cover this game, so I will add more insight once we get to that. Collin, I will go to you now for your best bet, and I just want to let you and Brett know that if you ever go too long, I have the right to stop you and call forward progress at any point in time. Where are you going, Collin?
I'm going to go with Arkansas. I am on site in Florida right now. I was at Arkansas's pep rally today. I am jacked about this game, but that's not the reason I'm making the bet. I played this at +4. I played this at money line. It's now up to -2.5. I think that's the last number that you're going to want to buy on the Razorbacks. And yes, the SEC is getting shredded in bowl games right now. But this is Sam Pittman's first bowl game, and it's an Arkansas team that has just been collecting trophies every week. The Southwest Conference Classic against Texas A&M, the boot, the battle line. They are ultra focused on this game. KJ Jefferson says, I need another year before I go to the NFL. This is a Penn State front that has absolutely been annihilated by injuries. PJ Mustapher going out earlier this season, and then Illinois running 350 yards in between the tackles against them. That's not a good thing for going up against Arkansas, who has a stable of running backs and KJ Jefferson. All of them have 500 yards on the season. And without their stars on defense for Penn State, 2 of their top linebackers and Brisker, those are the 3 top tacklers. That's 31% of their production on defense, all gone. No answers with Jahan Dotson. Arkansas is just going to dominate this game offensively in the trench. Penn State will be competitive with Trey Williams opting out for Arkansas defensive end. Penn State will be able to keep up in this game, but in the end, I like Arkansas to win this all the way.
Shocker. Collin comes in with an Arkansas mention within 3 minutes. I hope you enjoyed the pep rally. And yeah, it's been really interesting to watch the SEC struggle. Apparently, the only premier team in the SEC is the South Carolina Wildcat offense against North Carolina. But the hypothesis is maybe, look, it's still a small sample size, but maybe with, all of the players allowed to come back, right? And you have a lot more experienced teams. Maybe the gap between the SEC and some of these other conferences has closed just for this year. It's an interesting case study. We'll find out more today, of course. Brett, how about you? Where are you going today, sir?
I just want to start out first by taking a moment of silence because, unfortunately, I'm afraid Collin won't be able to talk about Arkansas next week when we do our national championship breakdown. But I think somehow he'll manage to get a pick on the Razorbacks.
He'll get a basketball mention, and if they can win a game in the SEC.
I'm sorry, he'll get Razorback golf or something. My best bet, look, it's Captain Obvious here, but Wake Forest and Rutgers. If you don't even consider the fact that Rutgers has had, 72 hours to prepare for this game, just look at Rutgers. 0-6 this year versus bowl teams, losing by an average of 28 points per game. They lost 3 of their last 4 games by 24, 28, and 49. Wake Forest and the Fighting Sam Hartmans, they have the nation's 5th best scoring offense, number 10 in total offense. The line's 15, 16, it may be up to 25 at this point. I don't know. I don't care. Wake Forest is going to name the score. They want to be here. They want to have an impressive performance because they want to finish up near the top 10 in the final AP rankings. This is a big game for them. They can name the score. I don't see how Rutgers can even field a team. They couldn't even field a team when they had an entire season to prepare. How are they going to do it on a week's notice? Give me the Demon Deacons.
Yeah, I think Rutgers in those 6 games that they played against both teams lost by an average score of like 38-10. The most points they scored in any of those games, 16 against Maryland. And this is a Rutgers defense strong against the run, but really struggles in the secondary, which is a problem against Sam Hartman and company. All right, so that'll do it for our best bets. I'm going with Cincinnati. Collin is going with his Razorbacks, and Brett is going with Wake Forest. Doesn't care what the number is, thinks the Deeks name it. All right, so let's get into our first two marquee games of the weekend. And we're going to start, obviously, with both college football playoff semifinals. We'll begin with Alabama and Cincinnati. Alabama is a 13 and a half point favorite, depending on which book you're looking at. Over under sitting right around 57 and a half. Collin, where are you going here?
I'm going to take it under 57 here. And it's not because there's any value in the market, but because Cincinnati is so good in the secondary, it demands Nick Saban to change his game plan around these three NFL defensive backs. And we've seen games where Nick Saban has decided to just go heavy rush before. I think back to Ole Miss where he said, Brian Robinson, you're going to run it 30 times. We're going to drain clock, and we're not going to allow Lane Kiffin to get his offense on the field. So instead of challenging the Cincinnati secondary, when you lost John Mechie III, your best receiver and probably your best blocker downfield, why would you do that when you could just run against an undersized defensive line? And I guess the question is can Desmond Ridder get it going against an Alabama defense? And the answer is probably no. Edge rusher Will Anderson is a leader in FBS pressures, probably has a chip on his shoulder about not being mentioned for the Heisman. Jerome Ford is not going to have any luck running the ball whatsoever. And Ridder struggles in passing downs. That's the key to this game. Cincinnati, top 10 in success rate and standard downs, and they love to run play action. But if you get them into passing down situations and you get pressure on Ridder, bad things can happen. So look for a heavy rush attack by Bama. It's going to be a grind of a game. I'll take an under here.
Yeah, I don't mind the under, but I'm going to go with Cincinnati plus 14. I think they're being disrespected in the market here. I make this game slightly under 10. And I think everyone is just falling in love with Alabama for seeing them dominate one game against Georgia. We've seen them dominate other games throughout the year, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, but we've also seen them lose and or almost lose multiple times as 3, sometimes 4 touchdown favorites. LSU, Auburn in 4 overtimes. Your Arkansas Hogs. I mean, I should have lost to Florida, and Emory Jones can go on and on here. This has been one of the most inconsistent top teams in college football. Their offensive line, their secondary. And you're right, this Cincinnati secondary, best in the nation, in my opinion. You have Sauce Gardner, just locks down the boundary side of the field. 1,100 career snaps. He's allowed 0 touchdowns and has 9 interceptions. You have the Jim Thorpe Award winner on the other side and Kobe Bryant. You have an elite safety on the back end, really good linebackers. I think Alabama will have some success running the ball, but I just think this line's too high. I expect Ridder to have some success on play action early, use his legs, which can always give Alabama's defenses some issues. I think Cincinnati is live here and keeps this close. I'll take the 2 touchdowns. We should probably just skip over Brett because I know where he's going to go, and he's going to back his boy Saban and give us the stats about them laying over 2 touchdowns. Hasn't worked out that well this year, though. Where are you going, Brett?
Stuck, I was actually going to take Cincinnati, and I actually looked more into what you talked about in Cincinnati's dominance on defense. And you're right; they have dominated defensively, one of the best defensive backfields in the country. But look at the offenses they've faced. They've only faced 4 top 50 passing efficiency offenses. They've faced 4 of the worst 25 passing offenses in the country. We're talking about Navy, Tulane, USF. To use one of your phrases, those are poverty. Look, I understand this is Cincinnati's Super Bowl, but Bama somehow, some way this week, I'm here in Dallas, they've actually convinced themselves that they are the underdog, that they're not being respected. I don't know how Saban pulled that magic trick, but apparently they believe that. Then you look at Saban, 5-0 in AT&T Stadium. He's won his last 5 semifinal games by 20 points. And the other thing that really flipped me over to Alabama, because I was actually going to take Cincinnati, you look at the 14 semifinal games in the college football playoff. Only 4 of those 14 games have been decided by less than 17 points. You mentioned all the close calls Alabama has had. Yeah, that's true. Cincinnati, though, schedule is one of the weakest around. I still think if Oklahoma State, may they rest in peace, would have won the Big 12 title game, they would have got in over Cincinnati because of their strength of schedule. Cincinnati hasn't played anybody. I think they get exposed. I don't think Alabama is going to beat them by 40. I think eventually they pull away. Saban will get conservative in the second half because he'll be looking towards the title game. But I'll take Alabama. You say it's 14. I saw 13 and a half, whatever. Alabama minus 14 to get to the national title game.
Yeah, I think you're selling the Cincy secondary short. I mean, they've done it for years, and they faced good passing offenses in their conference over the years. And we're not talking about just numbers. We're talking about NFL corners. And these guys are, Sauce Gardner is going to be a first-round draft pick. These aren't just, run-of-the-mill guys that are dominating a bad schedule. This is an NFL. I think this is the best secondary in the nation. And we didn't even mention the loss of John Mechie, who had 96 catches over 1,100 yards. He's really that security blanket, that possession receiver that Alabama relies on. I think his loss is big because the depth, just not a lot of experience there. Obviously, a lot of talent. Should be a fascinating one. But let's move on to the second college football playoff semifinal between Michigan and Georgia. Georgia's 7.5-point favorite here. Over under sitting right around 45.5. Collin, where are you going here?
I'm going to go with an over in this game. And, it's a number that I project in the 50s. And the general thinking is that the Michigan defense is capable of shutting down any team in the country. And that's false when it comes to standard downs and rushing attacks. The Wolverines are 109th in stuff rate, 61st in line yards. And you have to ask, go back to Michigan State. Why did Michigan State and Kenneth Walker beat Michigan? Because they averaged 8.1 yards in standard downs and they averaged 6.7 yards per rush. They just dominated on the ground. You enter in this Georgia offense, just a stable of running backs that average more than 3 yards after contact. And then on the Michigan side of the ball, I mean, this is a heavy rush offense. But, when Josh Gaddis had to break down the tape of what Alabama did against Georgia, he saw that secondary just got torn up for the Bulldogs. So even though Cade McNamara and J.J. McCarthy are not the best at throwing downfield, it is an area of weakness that I expect Michigan to try to attack at some point and get some explosive plays. I'm just going to take the over in this game. I think there's going to be some Georgia Todd Monken, up-tempo Stetson Bennett designed runs. So I'm going to take the over here.
Yeah, I don't think this is a great matchup for Michigan. And just like Alabama, people forgot, their whole body of work. People are forgetting that Georgia dominated everyone all year long. And, this Michigan passing offense, similar to a lot of the SEC teams that they dominated all year. So I don't think that Michigan is capable of, duplicating what Alabama did with a Heisman Trophy winning quarterback, Jamison Williams on the outside. It's some run-first Michigan offense. You just simply can't run on Georgia. There's some worrying things here. I mean, Michigan struggles with like stunts and twists. On the other side of the ball, they struggle against play action, allowing over 2.5 yards more per drop back on play action. That's what Georgia thrives on. Number one EPA per pass on early downs because of that play action. I think they'll have success running the ball. This Georgia team has heard that it's the same old Georgia. They've sat on that Alabama loss for a month. I think this is a bad match for Michigan. I need 7, though. Flat 7, not out there. So what I'm going to recommend here, Georgia plus 140, which you can find out there to win the national title. I still make them slightly over a field goal favorite over Alabama. Plus, I think that Cincinnati has a better shot of beating Alabama than the market is implying. And I think there's value in this Georgia number. I'd make the Georgia true odds to win the national title right now around like plus 110-ish, 105. So give me the plus 140. I think they win today and will win the national title. I still think this is clearly the best team in the country. Brett, where are you going here?
Stuck, good news. We disagree again. The thing I don't like about Michigan, though, is they are the public dog. I hate having a public dog. But I look at it this way. Both teams obviously very solid defensively. Both Georgia number 2, Michigan, I think, is at 11th. Best defense in the country. What concerns me about Georgia is Stetson Bennett. And the Alabama game, Alabama played their A-plus game. Georgia was already locked in the playoff. That was only the second time this season that Georgia had actually trailed deeper than the second quarter in a game this year. And I think it exposed them that if Michigan can get on top of Georgia cannot come back very easily with Stetson Bennett. I know Collin mentioned they can design some runs for him, those sort of things. I just think I like Michigan in this spot. Michigan also a national best 11-2 ATS against the spread. And Michigan's been an underdog twice this year against Wisconsin and Ohio State. And they've won by 21 and 15 points in both of those games. I know Jim Harbaugh's history in bowl games. I know everything that's happened up until this year. This year, it just seems like it's Michigan's year. you're getting more than a touchdown. You mentioned it's 7.5. I'll gladly take that hook, and I'm going with the Wolverines. I don't know if they'll get it outright, but I think, I talked about earlier, the semifinal games have all been blowouts. I think this will be one of the rare games that could come down to a final possession.
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed the handicap. But I just don't think that Michigan can build a lead. Like that's how you have to make
True,
steps
they may
to
not. They may
throw.
not.
Yeah, throw from behind, throw in passing downs. Right, you can't run on Alabama, and Alabama was able to exploit the Georgia secondary to build a lead. I don't think Michigan's going to be able to throw, and I think that Georgia can actually have success running the ball and on play action early. But if Michigan is able to build a lead, yeah, that's the path to success. I just don't see it happening. All right, before we get to two other marquee bowl games tomorrow, let's take a look at our Twitter poll question of the week. And it was, what is your favorite bet for Ole Miss Baylor? Ole Miss 1.5 point favorite. 41-ish% of you said Ole Miss is the bet. Collin, where are you going here?
Well, I never understood this number for the total. It opened up at 50.5. I mean, it's now steamed up closer to my projection of 58.5. And instead of going into like how healthy Matt Corral is or Gary Bohannon's going to play in this game, and that's going to be issues for both of the defenses, let's talk about the history of Lane Kiffin calling plays on offense against Dave Aranda calling plays on defense. It goes all the way back to 2010 when USC and Hawaii played. That's the first time these two ever faced off against each other. 89 total points in that game. If you go back to 2015, Dave Aranda was calling defense for Wisconsin, and Lane Kiffin was at Alabama, and Alabama put up 35 offensive points against Dave Aranda's defense. So these two coaches know each other very well. Both mobile quarterbacks, both teams heavily motivated. I'm going to ride with this over. I think it's good up until the key of 59.
Yeah, this is a pass for me. And I'm a little concerned about the SEC here. I guess I would have a small lean to Ole Miss based on the number, but probably a no bet for me. Brett, are you agreeing with the people with Ole Miss?
Yeah, I like Ole Miss here. I think this game means more to them. Obviously Baylor's not going to show up or anything like that, but look, Baylor won the Big 12 championship. I think that was the peak of their season. And, unless Spencer Sanders has gotten into the transfer portal and transfers to Ole Miss, Baylor's defense is not going to have 7 interceptions in this game like the Big 12 title game. No, I'm not still bitter. So I like Ole Miss to take care of the Bears here in the Sugar Bowl.
All right. Well, speaking of Spencer Sanders, let's get to our two marquee bowl games on Saturday. We will start with the Fiesta Bowl with Spencer Sanders and your aforementioned Pokes taking on Notre Dame. Notre Dame 2.5 point favorite here. Over under sitting right around 45.5. Collin, where are you going here?
Well, I'm going to take Oklahoma State. I'm going to back a head coach that always has his team prepared for a bowl game. Mike Gundy, 10-5 against the spread in bowls. He has covered 5 straight. While the defense is going to get all the publicity for this game, and we can go on and on about it, and deservedly so. I mean, they're the best in the nation in 3 and out. They're going up against a depleted Notre Dame offense. I think the handicap really comes on the other side of the ball. With everything safety, Kyle Hamilton being out for the last half of the season, there was some pressure that came down on corners Cam Hart and Clarence Lewis, and they grade outside the top 60 of individual cornerbacks on PFF. Notre Dame has a very poor defensive rush, and what that means is Spencer Sanders is going to have time, no pressure on him to hit a guy like Tay Martin deep down the field, a guy that we have placed bets on before when corner play has been weak. Give me the team with the better defense, the coach that's more prepared. I mean, this is Marcus Freeman's first game. And Oklahoma State is full of seniors playing their last game. They are heavily motivated. I'm taking Cowboys all the way.
Yeah, I agree. And big experience. I love the hire of Marcus Freeman. A big experience edge in preparing a team for bowl. Gundy's actually 10-5 against the spread in bowl games, covering by an average margin of about 4 points. And yeah, you mentioned the absence of Kyle Hamilton. You're also missing Kyron Williams, who really came on at the end of the year at running back. And I think this Notre Dame team, I think, is a little inflated in the market because of what they did late in the year against they had a really favorable schedule. I mean, this is a team that went 3-0 one-possession games. In 7 of their 12 games, they finished 11-1. They were either trailing or led by 4 or less in the fourth quarter. And you're talking about a team that played Wisconsin without Braylon Allen. You're talking about they played even Georgia Tech without Gibbs. They played Virginia without Brennan Armstrong. I mean, Virginia without Brennan Armstrong is nothing. And since that Cincinnati loss at home, their final 7 games, which they all won, not one single one of those teams had a winning record. this year. So I think Notre Dame is a little inflated in the market. Oklahoma State not getting enough respect. I think a lot of people are remembering that last game when Spencer Sanders threw it away. But this is an Oklahoma State team that their offense improved. I still have them as a top 3 defense. I think they get this done as long as Spencer Sanders doesn't gift the game away as he did against Baylor. Brett, are you going to back your alma mater here and make this a clean sweep, or are you going to go with a little emotional hedge?
I'll back the Pokes on this one, but like you guys laid it out perfectly. A couple of other things. I'm not sure how Notre Dame's favored here. They have, like you mentioned, Stuck. They have no top 25 wins this year. Oklahoma State has 2. Oklahoma State has the better defense. Sure, Jim Knowles will not be there, but all the players will be back. And the funny thing I noticed with the market, I don't know if you guys did, when Marcus Freeman became the head coach, it's like the perception of Notre Dame, they suddenly became a better team. Like Brian Kelly was this horrible coach, this horrible person. I don't necessarily agree with that narrative, but Notre Dame suddenly became, wow, this is a better team. Look, Marcus Freeman's a great story. He's going to be a great coach, but you're right. This is his first bowl game. Mike Gundy, the mullet, has coached. This will be his 16th bowl game. You mentioned he's 10-5 against the spread. He's also 10-5 straight up in bowl games. That's the 4th best winning percentage of all the active coaches. Another thing you guys didn't mention, running back Jalen Warren, who did not play in the Big 12 title game because of an injury. He is 100%. That will take the pressure off Spencer Sanders. Oklahoma State will be able to develop the run. Sanders won't have to throw as much. I don't understand all this love for Notre Dame just because of a head coaching change. I think it should have went the other way. I'll gladly take the Pokes and 2 or 2.5 or whatever the number is.
Wow, this is a rarity, Brett. You're usually going against Oklahoma State as an emotional hedge. It's worked out fairly well for you this year, so I don't know how I feel about this, but I like your confidence. All right, let's move on to our final game of the weekend, and we're going to talk the Rose Bowl on Saturday between Utah and Ohio State. Ohio State down to about a 4-point favorite, total sitting at around 64 and a half. Collin, where are you going in Pasadena?
We're going with Utah. And for those of you that go to sleep and don't get the chance to watch Pac-12, Utah quarterback Cam Rising has just been unstoppable this season. And now he gets a secondary from Ohio State that has been so bad. They've run through so many different position coaches to call plays. And then they opened up the checkbook and wrote Jim Knowles a check and got him out of Oklahoma State. So they'll be prepared in 2022. But for this game, there's a lot of new faces and some starters that are not going to be available for Ohio State. Wide receiver Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, blindside tackle Nicholas Petit-Ferrer, and then you look at defensive tackle Haskell Garrett. Those guys have all decided to opt out, which means there's a lot of players that are getting some, brand new playing time here, first-time starters. CJ Stroud is still going to be there, and Travion Henderson is there, so it's going to be a competitive game. But this secondary has been burned all season long, and there's no reason to think that it's not going to happen again. And this Utah roster has just been through a ton the past 16 months. This Rose Bowl is so big for this program and for these players. It's just going to be a fantastic ending for a conference championship Utah team, just to put a bow tie on what has been a magical run for some of these upperclassmen at Utah.
Yeah, I completely agree with Utah here. Throw in some money line as well. This is just a motivational play. I'm not sure Ohio State wants to be here, and this is a Utah, like first Rose Bowl. And they're going to have probably a home field advantage here. If you saw that Pac-12 title game, you can expect a lot of Utah fans here, obviously a lot closer to campus as well. But look, here's how you know the motivation advantage goes to Utah. Utah's about 6 or 7 guys that declared for the NFL draft. They all came out and said, we're still playing in this bowl game. Ohio State, on the other hand, most of their guys said opting out of this bowl game. And there's a couple other guys that were missing from practice. So who knows if Ohio State's going to be missing a few others. This Utah team remains undervalued in the market. Since Cam Rising took over at quarterback, been one of the best teams in the country. Ohio State gives up explosive runs, and they allow you to efficiently pass against them. That's the Utah offense. I think it's a really good matchup on paper as well. And then obviously you have this Ohio State offense that's going to have to try and find some chemistry together without 2 potential first-round draft picks at receiver, offensive line reshuffling. So, motivation, matchup, it's a home crowd advantage, the opt-outs for Ohio State. I think this is all Utah. Brad, are you going to make it back-to-back sweeps?
I am, and I think this is probably a good time to remind the viewers and my 2 cohorts on this call. Somebody on this call actually picked Utah to win the Pac-12 title before the game. So I did get one preseason prediction correct.
Forward progress. You're done.
Yeah,
Forward progress.
you guys laid it out. You know, for Ohio State, this season was very simple. After they lost to Oregon, they knew what they had to do. They had to win out to get to the college football playoff game. So what do? They win 9 consecutive games. Then they lose to Michigan. Now this is a consolation game for Ohio State. As crazy as that sounds, playing New Year's Day in the Rose Bowl is a consolation game. For Utah, it was the opposite. They started 1-2. They had to win out to get to the Rose Bowl. They won 9 of their last 10. They get to the Rose Bowl. They've won 8 of the last 9. They've scored at least 34 points in those games. And for the last 5 games, they've allowed less than 14 points. I know Ohio State's better than the average Pac-12 team, but they want to be here. This is 100% motivation. And if you didn't like Utah before, wait till you see their helmets. They actually have a rose decal on their helmets. I talked about last week or 2 weeks ago, the entire city of El Paso would be at the New Mexico Bowl. Maybe all 500,000 people didn't make it there, but UTEP got home and covered for us. The entire state of Utah, except for BYU fans, will be in Pasadena. This will be 30% tickets for Utah. Give me the Utes plus the number.
Could even be higher than 70%, to be honest. And yeah, I completely agree. So it's back-to-back clean sweeps. That'll do it for us. Thanks, as always, to Collin and Brett for joining me. Thanks to you all for tuning in. And by the way, if you want to yell about anything we told you, right or wrong, or just anything about these games, you can call our Bad Beat hotline, 959-BAD-BEAT. You might be featured on our college football and basketball podcast, Big Bets on Campus. You can find that wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for tuning in. Good luck with your wagers this weekend. Happy New Year. Call an Uber. Stay safe. Don't drink and drive. Good luck this weekend.